If you really like long boat races, boy have I got a Miami Vice episode for you. Today's episode, The Great McCarthy, was written by Philip Reed and Joel Surnow, and was directed by George Stanford Brown, who starred in the 1970s cop drama The Rookies. In today's episode, Tubbs makes another sketchy romantic choice, boats get raced, champagne gets drunk, sequins get worn, and a new recurring character is introduced. Let's dive in. This episode opens with a bank robbery in which Crockett and Tubbs apprehend minor league criminal Izzy Moreno, played by Martin Ferrero. Izzy, who is a rather strange yet endearing fellow, will soon become a fixture on Miami Vice. He'll appear in over 20 episodes over the course of the series. Izzy, who dabbles in a little drug smuggling on the side, gives Crockett and Tubbs intel about an upcoming cocaine shipment coming into Miami, courtesy of big league smuggler and boat aficionado Lewis McCarthy. McCarthy is played by William Gray Espy, who's just kind of known for this episode. There's not a whole lot else on his CV. McCarthy is famous for his yearly high-stakes, winner-takes-all boat race from Miami to the Bahamas. Castillo suspects McCarthy uses this race as a cover for drug smuggling, so he orders Crockett to enter the race by any means necessary. Tubbs goes undercover and gets in tight with McCarthy by insulting his boat and putting the moves on his beautiful girlfriend, Vanessa, which apparently is the way you endear yourself to the rich and corrupt. Vanessa, who is played by model Maria McDonald, has been secretly skimming money from McCarthy with the help of his accountant. She also wears some fabulous outfits in this episode. It's now one of my goals for my personal spiritual development to someday own a floor-length silver lame shawl with matching pants, which I will wear while lolling around in the world's weirdest and most wonderful bed. That bed is freaking ridiculous, and yet awesome. Even though Tubbs is rather openly canoodling with his girlfriend, McCarthy invites Tubbs and Crockett to attend a fancy party at his waterfront home. And this party is a fabulous mess. First off, there's a band comprised of dudes clad in sequins, belting out covers of Rod Stewart's Some Guys Have All the Luck and Laura Branigan's Self-Control, which are two songs I love very much. To make it even better, Lindsey Buckingham's glorious 1984 hit, Go Insane, plays while Crockett hustles McCarthy at pool to gain entry into his very exclusive boat race. This whole time, everybody's dressed in head-to-toe sequins while sipping endless flutes of champagne. I'm no slouch in the champagne and sequins department, but this episode makes me realize how much more I could raise my game. As the evening wears on, the party starts to drag a little bit when McCarthy's accountant, who, like Tubbs, is sleeping with Vanessa on the sly, winds up dead in the pool with a bullet in the back of his head. All of this has been a lot of deliriously entertaining nonsense thus far, but I'm sad to say it's all downhill from here. The boat race itself is very, very long and brings the entire story to a thudding stop. If you watch this episode and you're not a huge fan of watching boats zoom around, do yourself a favor and get up and pour yourself more champagne as soon as you hear the opening strains of Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild, which will play in its entirety during the boat race. And then Born to Be Wild ends and a nice Jan Hammer instrumental piece strikes up, and the boat race is still going on. The entire back half of this episode is nothing but boat race. I suspect this sequence was very complicated and very expensive to shoot, what with coordinating all of the boats and setting up all the aerial shots, and that the director was probably like, damn it, after all that, we are using every scrap of footage, because this goes on for a stupidly long time. Crockett eventually wins the race, probably because McCarthy was a bit too preoccupied with smuggling drugs back from Bimini to focus on the competition, and Castillo swoops in like the angel of vengeance at the finish line and busts McCarthy. Tubbs and Vanessa have a quick victory shag, which is interrupted when Crockett stops by to announce that Izzy witnessed Vanessa killing the accountant. Usually this is the part in these reviews where I'd point out some kind of cool recurring theme, or some ominous foreshadowing, or any of the other elements that made Miami Vice so great. This episode has none of that. There's a classic Bloom County cartoon from this era in which Opus, the penguin, visits the island of people who realize that Miami Vice is stylized garbage, which is very unkind, and I would argue most often untrue. But in this case, if you wanted to make the argument that this episode is indeed stylized garbage, I wouldn't really defend it too much. This is a 2 flamingo episode, but I'm going to subtract a flamingo for that awful boat race, but I'm going to add 2 flamingos back in for the fashion and music choices. 3 flamingos seems more than fair. Not a standout episode, in other words. But thank you for hanging in there with me. Join me next week as Crockett and Tubbs leave Miami and head off on a wild adventure in the Everglades. Until then, please hit subscribe or follow me on Twitter if you want to talk about the episode over there, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.